This Wednesday, the Detroit Freep Film Festival opens with a documentary that has already brought in a big award, the Library of Congress Levine Ken Burns Prize. And what better venue than Detroit for a film about the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history? The producer and co-director of Gradually, Then Suddenly is Sam Katz, who joins us now. Sam, it is really great to have you here. Can I assume you are pretty keen to see how your film plays in the city that serves as its epicenter?
A little anxious, I would say, Devin, but I'm really proud of this project, and I really think people in Detroit are going to love it, even if they didn't love the bankruptcy or if they were upset about the outcome. I think we gave voice to virtually every point of view, and it's really quite an impressive documentary, and I've been doing this for 14 years. This is certainly my best work.
Yeah, no one loved the bankruptcy, that's for sure, but I think we all remain still to this day stunned that the city went through it as quickly as it did, given the prognostications for how long we were going to be mired in this mess.
I think when you think about the illiquidity of a city, the insolvency of a city, the bankruptcy had no exit absent owning the Detroit Institute of Arts and its collection. And had that not been the case, or in connection with other cities that have similar fiscal problems to face, not owning a valuable asset is a real disadvantage to getting out of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it was only because of the DIA that the foundations came to the fore and the city was able to exit. I
have said many times that was kind of my conclusion. Detroit is the city that was saved by art. Everybody was so afraid that these pensions were going to go up in a puff of smoke. When they realized what had to be done to save the art, then the move was made that helped largely keep those pensions intact. I think it seems to me you've arrived at the same conclusion.
Well, I think the pensions are not intact. I mean, they're not as badly cut as they could have been.
Yes, that's a better way of putting it, right.
Losing cost of living increases in a moment of intense inflation is a real problem for the retirement of the city. The health care was not constitutionally guaranteed, but it was something people were counting on. Losing health care benefits was something that's pretty severe. So the pensioners of Detroit, as creditors, were every bit at risk and made significant sacrifices. And those sacrifices, I think, are stinging a lot of people today.
You're absolutely right. I should not make it sound like it was painless. It was simply only in relative terms, given what the outlook seemed to be at the beginning. When you look back, and there are a number of uses of reenactments, including the elegant piece that came together that we've come to know as the Grand Bargain. But before all of that, what do you think we can trace the actual, the real roots of Detroit's bankruptcy to?
Well, I think that's really embedded in the title of the film, Gradually. And Detroit gradually, then suddenly went into bankruptcy. The gradually part is the deindustrialization of the automobile industry, its relocation outside of the city, the absence of a public transportation system to make urban residents accessible to jobs in the suburbs, the loss of revenue sharing, the decline of the American economy, the recession, all of those things, plus decision-making that was poor on the part of many of the city officials. It's really hard for an elected official to make the kinds of choices that you have to make to avoid the need to fiscally restructure your city, because you won't get reelected. And I understand that as someone who's tried to be elected in Philadelphia. It's really tough to make tough decisions, but American cities, and Detroit is not out of the woods by any means, need to face some of the realities without kicking the can down the road. This film and Detroit's experience shows what it looks like when you run out of road. As I said before, if you don't own an art museum or something of valuable, a valuable asset to sell, the effect on retirees, on city workers, and on the basic services of the city would be devastating.
I think that's a really important point here, is that I believe you see Detroit as a canary here, that there are many other municipalities and government structures that face similar problems down the road.
I think we got to break a lot of cities because of, in the COVID environment, the Congress and the White House put a package together
Yeah.
that included subsidies for states and local governments, and those subsidies run out at the end of fiscal 23. And Detroit had a 10-year tax abatement, or excuse me, a 10-year pension abatement, in which it did not have to make contributions to the pension fund. But beginning in fiscal 24, July 1st, 2023, there's going to be a nearly $300 million hit on the operating budget of the city to begin to amortize those pension liabilities.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very painful for the city of Detroit.
Yeah, no doubt. Sam, we're really looking forward to this. Again, the film will debut, break open the film festival coming up on Wednesday, but starting a week from tonight, you're going to have a number of screenings that'll be around Southeast Michigan. They're all free, and we're going to try to link those for you here. You'll find them not only on the Free Press website, but we'll link them here on our website as well. Sam, really looking forward to it. I hope the reaction is terrific, and congratulations on a really important piece of work.
And thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope your viewers get to see it, and I'll look forward to their reactions.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks so much, Sam.